Hello, this is Michael. This is our new episode. Today we will talk about the clinical evaluation report according to China's NMPA guidelines. We have seen many foreign companies directly using the CER written based on the MEDEF 2.71 revision 4 or the slight revision for China's submission, which was always rejected most of the time. The most important reason is that the whole concept of CER between NMPA and MEDEF are different. Under the current NMPA guidelines, if you want to go through the CER pathway, you have to find one or more equivalent devices that have been approved in China. If you cannot find it, you have to go through the clinical trial pathway. Either do it in China or use a overseas clinical study report. Still, you have to make sure that the overseas clinical data that meet China GCP requirements and justify whether the clinical data are transferable to the Chinese population. Now we assume that you can find the equivalent device. You need to compare it with your device under evaluation. There is a list of the items you need to compare with, including clinical, technical, and biological characteristics, which is very similar to the MDCG documents that published earlier this year. Specifically explained clinical evaluation on equivalent under the MDR requirements. However, there are difficulties for manufacturers to do it under NMPA guidelines because of the equivalent device. For most of the cases, it has to be from the same manufacturer, as the product technical requirements, also called the PTR, have to be compared between the device under evaluation and the equivalent device. And this PTR is the confidential documents for the manufacturers, as it contains the device technical performance, technical specifications, and the verification methods. Even though sometimes, if applicable, we could purchase a competitor's equivalent device from the market and verify its performance by applying type testing together with the device under evaluation. This is not easy, but it works. Under the EU MDR requirements, which says all medical devices will need a clinical evaluation report, but an NMPA has different levels of requirements for the clinical evaluation. Firstly, there is a clinical trial exception catalog. Medical devices with lower risks are mostly listed here, and you don't need to conduct a clinical trial. You also don't need to write an elaborate CER. Instead, you just compare your device to the intended use and the general description in the exception catalog. You then compare it with a equivalent device that has been approved in China. This is the most straightforward evaluation for the lower risk medical devices. Then for some of the higher risk class 3 medical devices, the manufacturers may have to conduct the clinical trial in China, or you can also use overseas clinical data to fulfill this requirement. But again, the clinical data has to meet the China GCP requirements and justify whether the clinical data are transferable to the Chinese population. If you've done this, the CER will be omitted. And thirdly, for the Class 1 device, the CER is not needed. Instead, you will need to submit a device description and compare your device to the similar devices that have been placed on the market about their clinical use data and post-market surveillance data. Finally, except for all the devices that we have mentioned, you will need either a elaborate CER or a clinical trial report for the rest of the medical devices. We will not talk about the clinical trial, so we will only focus on the CER for this kind of medical devices. And we will continue in the next episode. So stay tuned.
See you next time.
Bye bye.